Proverbs chapter 31, beginning at verse number 10. Proverbs 31, 10 through the conclusion of the chapter is our topic for this morning. Let us read. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies? The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant's ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. She considereth the field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. So that is the conclusion of this section, and actually of the entire book of Proverbs. This, of course, is not a directly applicable, what we might say, a Mother's Day passage, though it may be profitable to examine during this time. And, of course, this could apply equally to individuals who were seeking a spouse, as it seems to reference here at the very beginning, talking about finding someone and her price is above rubies. It is very valuable. And generally this passage frequently will be, pretty much ignored. I don't know that I've talked on it a whole lot. It's shown to be the standards that this woman, whoever she is, if she is someone, is pretty high. And it's kind of impossible to live up to it fully. So therefore, we'll just ignore it altogether. So we don't want to do that. But as we go through, we, depending upon who you are, for one, we would not want to, if we're looking for a spouse as a male, we would not want to make certain that we find someone that fulfills each of these aspects before we seek a spouse that is acceptable. Because if you do that, you're going to be looking for a long, long time. In fact, you will never find her. So that's going to be an issue. That's not what the purpose is here of this passage or of this message at all. We're not saying that. In fact, sometimes I think that individuals, there's always something wrong with the individual that they're, involved with. And you know what? That's exactly right. There is something always wrong. And there's probably something wrong with you also. But we are humans. I don't know if it's just the people I'm around, but I think it's just classified by everyone. They're just brilliant individuals at being able to take a biblical text and apply it to someone else and what they're doing improperly. What we're usually not so good at doing that with ourselves. But we can take it and show where somebody's falling short. So that's not the purpose here, to say, well, this person, if I'm looking for a spouse, has to measure up to this. Or if I have a spouse, if she doesn't do everything exactly like this, then she is a failure and is a problem. We can really get what's really important within this passage towards the end of it. Towards the end of it. He is... her children rise up, call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. A woman that fears the Lord shall be praised. Those things are the critical ones that we want to look for. On the flip side, if you are a female here and you're a wife or a mom or neither of those at this point, we don't want to say, if you're not doing all of these, then you're some sort of failure and you're separated from a relationship with God or anything of the sort. But these are things that you could strive for to do and examine your life and compare them within how you live. And maybe there are some places where you could make improvements, and this is true throughout the scriptures that we look at. We don't just look at them and say, well, they're impossible, so nothing matters. Jesus has called us to a high standard of living, and the epistles make this clear. But, some of those things are really difficult, even impossible, some have stated. So, therefore, it doesn't really matter. We don't want to do that, making the Bible completely irrelevant. But we're going to look at some of these aspects here that we see within Proverbs 31 and how they are important. Attributes that you might want to look for in a spouse, or you might want to praise your current spouse or your mother who has these or has carried them out to some degree. The goal here is not a guilt trip, but seeking to apply as best we can. The number one, and we're going to list, I believe, 12 qualities that we'll pull out here. And, we could go on and on about these, but most of these will be rather brief, but the first one we'll look at, the heart of her husband trusts in her. This one may be, certainly the fact that she would trust in the Lord there towards the end is the most important, but this is one of the highest qualities that can be had because people struggle to find someone to trust. I don't have anybody to talk to. There's no one I can talk to about the problems I'm going through. That's an issue that many people struggle with. That's a real problem. And it's really intensified when there's someone who's married and they can't do that with their own spouse, with his wife. That's the one person you should be able to talk to. And if you can't, then there's a serious issue and something needs to go here. But his heart trusts in her. Trust in her. And you can definitely see that usually within, within homes that are semi-functional, we might add, but within our chaotic culture and world that we live in. This is certainly not always the case, but frequently, many times, the one person someone can turn to is their mother. That they can talk to them about this if their mother is still around, or and that's certainly not true in every situation, as we find throughout the book of Proverbs. We don't categorically, just say every situation is painted by this brush, but and within a spousal relationship, this is critical. It just has to be there, or there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a problem. Trusting in her. Trusting in her. And as the flip side of that, a woman that is examining this might say, am I trustworthy? Is there something that I've done that makes me untrustworthy? Do I need to change something along those lines? And that would be true for men that would examine that as well, even though we're specifically seeking the wife aspect there. Trustworthy has to be there. Not any doubt whatsoever, I tell her something important, I know that she's not going to tell others if that's not what is desired there. Trust is vital to any relationship. You interact with someone and you don't trust them, then the relationship's not really very close, is it? And you might get burned once in that relationship, and after you get burned, you'd kind of stand off a little bit, and it would take a lot of time, and the situation would have to be addressed before the relationship could improve. Sometimes people just like to act like things never happened and think that it will improve. You can act like it never happened, but it's going to be a problem, and things will never improve until that is true. So, if someone is trustworthy, if your wife or your mother, or as you look for this is a trait worthy of praise. Secondly, she does him good all the days of her life. Does good. She might be building the husband up, and even building up when things are kind of difficult. It's not building up when you might deserve it. When you deserve it, everybody will build you up. Everybody, oh, you're just the greatest. Those comments don't come along too often because, lots of times we may not deserve it. But she will build up at all points and at all times. And that, is tied back into that first point. And as I think about those, it's really difficult to get away from that all-important point there. That is foundational to what's going on here. It won't matter as we work our way down through these if she might do the others good if this one is not done properly. If there's not trust and if there's not building up along those ways. Women would have a unique way of telling their husbands and their children they've done a great job, even when they haven't. But it's not really beneficial to say, boy, you really blew that one. You probably already know that. And there's probably a lot of people that have already told you that, even though you already know it. So a beneficial relationship is not going to include that. Moms are great at watching their children fail miserably and saying, good job. And, it's just not good to say, that was terrible. But an excellent wife, an excellent mother, a companion worthy of spending time with. And companionship. She works with her hands. Thirdly, and this is related frequently throughout this section here, 13, 19, 24. We see several images of this individual who works with her hands to meet the needs of her family. She's sewing, she's crafting, she's working, she's attaining food and all sorts of things that are occurring. Maybe she's grocery shopping or whatever it might happen to be. Verse 16 speaks of her earnings, her selling merchandise, and 24, some people have a spouse or a mother who is faithful to do these things, but they neglect to give her praise for doing them, and until they're not done, and then it's not praise you're giving, but why wasn't this done? There's lots of things probably in your own life when you might be able to relate to that. The only time anybody says anything about me doing this is when I don't do it. We don't want to be that in relation to our wife or our mother, but to give praise. She does not eat the bread of idleness. She is hardworking. She goes the extra mile. And as we think about each of those aspects, relating it back to the earlier ones we looked at, if she did this, but she wasn't trustworthy, it's a wash. There's no point. There's no good here. There's a point. Okay, people are getting fed, but the relationship is struggling. Fourth, in verse 15, she rises while it is night. She looks well to the ways of her household in verse 27. She cares greatly for her family, for her children. She looks out for them. The one who gets up and takes care of people when nobody really feels like it. Fifthly, verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. It doesn't just speak to her willingness to work, it speaks to her wisdom. She's considering things. She is wise about this. Verse 26 says she opens her mouth in wisdom. There is wisdom at play in here. It's clear, it's right there. Do you value the input of your wife? If people have wives that speak wisdom, they ought to pay attention. If you're looking for a spouse, then obviously this is one of the things you would want to look to. Is this individual someone that's characterized by wisdom? That's not to say that they never say something that's unwise. Most people, including myself, have at one time said something that was not wise. But what is our life characterized by? Is a valuable point. And listening to her wisdom could save from embarrassment on occasion. Consult before, as we make plans and do things and decisions, it might be important to consult wisdom of the wise spouse here. And this will show that both are wise when there is talk of that. Praise this mother, this spouse who imparts wisdom to the family. Sixth, she extends her hand to the poor and stretches out her hands to the needy in verse number 20. This individual is loving not towards just her family, but towards everyone, towards those that are in need, that are, for some reason or another, are unable to take care of themselves, towards people in the community that are struggling for one reason or another. And her deeds are good, and they cause everyone to speak well of her and to note the great things that she has done, how she has assisted and helped. And people speak highly of her even when she's not present. This is a compassionate individual, and if you have someone like that in your life, you should feel blessed, and you should give praise to that individual for that. This is not someone who would just be critical of a person for not being able to feed themselves or take care of themselves, or, again, that's not the beneficial point that would be made of that. It's not to say, you really messed up because you don't even have anything to eat. Yeah, I can see that, thanks. That's going to do wonders to fill my stomach. No, it's not going to do anything. It's going to put people off. This person is compassionate, is help, and reaches out to those who are in need. Extending hand to the poor, stretching out hands to the needy. We really don't have to look exceptionally far to find someone that is needy. 7, verse 21, not afraid of the snow, all her household clothed with scarlet. She's prepared. She's watching out. She's thinking beforehand of what might need to occur, what might need to happen. Mothers are good at that, and something to think about, because there are many times that we may not think too far ahead. It's important to evaluate, to think, to contemplate, and see what we need or what's going to be required as we move forward. Praise this individual who is prepared when no one else seems to be. And again, if someone is prepared, generally they will not receive praise, but they will just earn the title of, we can depend upon them because that they're prepared, that they're ones that will get the job done, that will accomplish the task. Lots of times when people are in a place of employment and they do their job effectively, they don't really get that much praise, actually. They just get more work added onto them of others that are taking the slack. And that can occur within relationships as well. Don't want to fall into that. Number 8, verse 22, she makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. And again, we're carrying through this idea of making these things, taking care of it, working, making certain that things are handled properly, and it's something that should be known and done. 9th, verse 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. He is known as within the elders of the gates. This is where they sit around and, all the important people would come together and talk and decide things, and the wisdom would be shared. And she makes him look good, essentially. It's not going to be helpful for someone at the city gates to have a foolish wife. Look within Proverbs at those that are wise and those that are foolish and the behaviors that they exhibit. And it's pretty clear. It's laid out exactly. And so he's going to be known in the gates profitably as someone that has a good wife. And so she is making him look good. Good reputation and being able to help him accomplish things profitably within his own life. And, of course, there's the opposite of that. Now, there's the wise woman that this woman we're examining, and you can see elsewhere in Proverbs. And then there's the foolish woman who does not do that, and she would make her husband look bad. And that can be for a variety of reasons, and some people do fall into that trap, whether that's just listening to the culture or saying, he's earned it because he's just not wise at all, and that may be true to a degree, but this is not where one wants to be. There's a wise path and a foolish path. It's not whether or not I've ever chosen one or the other at any point in my life, but where am I seeking to walk now? Am I seeking wisdom or foolishness? Praise the wife who causes one to look good, to give the positive benefits there. And that should not be taken lightly. This is one of the real important ones. Some of these are, critical to be able to examine and apply within our lives. Some of them are practical. She does this, she makes that, she does that. And if we had to choose one or the other, it's easy to see which ones are most critical. Number 10, verse 25, she's planned ahead for the future, for the problems that may be coming, and she is well prepared. We've seen that in other areas. She's optimistic about what is ahead instead of fretting and worrying about, it's just going to be terrible and everything's going to be optimistic. People are encouragers. They are helpers. Those that are pessimistic, of course, are not very beneficial for being able to look to the future and what it might, Can you think of everything that will go wrong? Some people are good at that, come up with things. I'm not the most optimistic person in the world, but I never really thought about that. I guess that could happen. And, don't want to be one of those, regardless of who we are, and something, again, to look for within our spouse. And if our spouse is someone that does this in a beneficial way, they should be praised for that. But we love to be around optimistic people. That they help us to be optimistic and for things to go well. 11, verse 26, the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Again, tied closely to the one we just looked at, we would like to be around someone that is a pleasant talker. Not someone that is continually complaining, whining, everything is wrong. Yes, we know everything is wrong. It doesn't take too long to figure out and look around to see that some things are wrong. But this person speaks with kindness, is a teacher of kindness, and if our mother has this attribute, our wife has this attribute, they are to be praised for that. If we are one of those individuals, we should seek to cultivate it. teaching kindness to others, to the children, whatever might be in view there. And she helps to make up for rough edges that others might have. Kindness always on her tongue. And that's the type of person that you would enjoy talking to. And it helps to exude kindness towards others. But it's sometimes difficult to find. Lastly, number 12, and of course we could probably pick out more of these, but number 12, our last one, fears the Lord shall be praised. Very, very important, probably the most important one that we've looked at. If your wife, your mother, your spouse, however this goes, loves God, you've got it good. That's where you really need to be. Praise her, love her for the dedication that is there. If you're still looking for a spouse, seek one above all that has this quality, that fears the Lord. And she shall be praised, and each of these other things will fall into place eventually if this quality is there and is maintained at all times. Now, that of course is a dilemma that people might struggle with, is maintaining it at all times, because it's difficult to continually be faithful to do that when a lot of people aren't doing that. But this is one. As we, again, look for a spouse within our lives, those of you that do not have one, that this is the one quality that we want to make certain that is there. The Bible doesn't tell us everything that is required there. Well, it lays out some minimal qualifications. Someone who fears the Lord, someone is a believer. Other than that, there are not a whole lot of things that are there, which leaves things open a bit. It doesn't have to be an individual that's a clone of you, as shocking as it might be. We don't really want a clone of you. And, we don't want that, but sometimes that's what we think. It has to be just like this. We want someone who fears God. And if we have a mother who has done that, who has lived that out to any measure, we are to praise her for that. We are to give thanks to God that we have been able to live in that situation. And if we have not been able to live in that situation, we need to seek to be faithful to set the standard within your own life. It's not an excuse to say, oh, well, that's just the way things have been done, and that's how they're just going to continue. Within each of our lives, whether we're a mother or not, we have a responsibility to live our lives in a way that is honoring to God and that will influence others for God in an appropriate and beneficial way. With that, let us stand and we'll close in prayer this morning as we look to the Lord. Dear Father, we thank you for this day and for this time together, for opportunities that you give us to look at your word, and for this passage that we have here before us. We thank you for the ways that you work and how you have blessed and guided us. We pray that you would help these words to be instilled within hearts and minds and lives, and that you would be able to use them to further your kingdom, to impact others for your goodness and your greatness. We just ask that you would be with us as we go from here, that you would watch over us, help us to be protected and seeking you in each and every area of our lives. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.